Carl Fix, welcome to the show. Welcome to Become Your Own Superhero.
Thank you so much, Laban, for having me on. I'm really, really excited to be here. It's quite a privilege, and I can't wait for our conversation.
Well, thank you for saying that, and the honor is all mine. You are a high-quality human being, Carl, and it's an absolute thrill to have you on here. And I'd love to start off with a real curly one for you, if I could.
Sure.
What does pleading the fifth mean for the uninitiated?
Pleading the Fifth is based on the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, where you have the right to remain silent. So if you plead the Fifth, you are invoking that right, which is constitutionally guaranteed to all U.S. citizens to not have to offer testimony that may incriminate you. So it's become a euphemism for, I really don't want to answer that question in multiple settings. So that's plead the Fifth.
Well, here's this follow-up question that just came into my head as you were sharing it. This is to give you an idea of where my brain goes, right? What if someone is arrested, pleads the Fifth, but suffers from Tourette's? Is the Tourette's admissible in court?
That's a good question, and I'd never practiced criminal law, but I think whatever you say can and will be held against you. So if it's a Tourette's outburst, then it seems to be fair game to me.
Oh my God. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. And by the way, one caveat to the Fifth Amendment is that juries are instructed that they cannot draw an adverse inference against the person who invokes the Fifth. So the judge will instruct the jury that you're not to read anything into it. But the jury's out on that as to whether they read stuff into it or not. And I think we know the answer to that.
Well, this is so interesting. And Carl, for our audience, why do you know so much about the law?
Well, I practiced law for 33 years, 1988 to 2021.
And what type of law did you specialize in?
I specialized in construction law and a little bit of employment, but mostly construction.
Now, for the folks at home, that's no longer Carl's occupation. He's doing some other things now, which we'll get into. But I suppose a follow-up question from that is, what is it about practicing law for such a long time that sort of so dramatically impacted your life and what you're doing now?
Well, the short answer is the practice of law. I was on the litigation side of the ledger. You really have two sides, transactional or litigation. And litigation to me most clearly mimicked athletic competition. And I've always been a sports fan, and I've always played sports, and I've engaged in all types of athletic activities since I could walk. So as I got older, I needed to satisfy the competitive nature within me and the insatiable appetite and thirst for athletic competition. And to me, being a courtroom lawyer or engaged in litigation most clearly mimicked that, where I could actually do that and I could actually make money doing it and I could actually have fun doing it. So that's what I did. And in order to, what made me more resilient throughout is that I was always working out and trying to stay fit in order to practice my profession, because litigation lends itself to very, very long days and very long weeks, especially if you are on trial. So that what I'm doing now dovetails with what I've done for most of my career.
So if someone was to ask you in a lift, Carl, what is it that you do? What do you say?
I say I help busy professionals reclaim their wellness. That is the I help X do Y in a very tight soundbite. But basically, I want to help folks, and I am helping folks that are very, very busy, who either once were in shape, or if they weren't in shape, want to get into shape. Those that may have fallen off the fitness wagon and want to get back on it. But one of the single biggest blocks is time. So I help busy professionals reclaim their wellness, get it back, because it's to me, it's a cornerstone success principle in business.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's funny, I was listening to your interview with Meredith Bell, and one of the questions came up was, what do you say to people that you're coaching that say they don't have enough time? And I was screaming, not not super loud, but I was screaming, saying, make time, you lazy bastard. And you've got a bit more tact than I when it comes to this kind of thing. What do you say to people that say, I don't have time to be healthy or be fit?
Well, I'm right with you on the make time thing. Make it a priority, schedule it. We schedule so many things. Many people, I mean, Starbucks, people will go to Starbucks. This is before you could order on the app, but people would go to Starbucks and wait 20 minutes for a coffee. You can have a fantastic workout in 20 minutes. So you've got time to go to Starbucks and wait for your coffee. You have 20 minutes to get in a little fitness and elevate your heart rate. So it's a matter of, I believe, prioritizing it. And one of the ways you can do that is via scheduling. Just schedule it like anything else.
And what's the demographic of people that you're ordinarily dealing with, Carl?
Uh, well, I just chatted a couple weeks ago with a young guy who is a fifth year associate, meaning he has been out of law school for 5 years, and young guy. And he was a college athlete, and he was lamenting the fact that he was so busy, he let his physical fitness fade. And I said to him, Joe, I was exactly where you are right now. I got out of law school in 1988. I did let things go in those first 4 or 5 years because they're critically important to basically establishing yourself as a lawyer. And around 1993, 1994, so 5 to 6 years into my career, I realized this was not sustainable. So I set a goal to run a marathon. I wanted to run the New York City Marathon, and I did that in 95, so 7 years out. So when I was chatting with this young guy, I said, don't lose hope. I've been there, and we can turn this around. So you've got, on the one hand, young guys that are getting involved in the practice and don't think they have enough time. And then I'm 57 years old. There are folks who, a lot of my friends, we played sports together as younger guys, and some of them may not be as active as I am for whatever reason, but that's a demographic as well. Again, people that were once very active and are no longer and want to get it back, but don't really know how to get there.
Yeah, it's really great, Carl. And you are a really inspiring dude, and we've got to know each other over the last few months. And the thing I really love about you and the way that you go about life is that, like a lot of people in this network of people that we hang out with, you come from a go-giver mentality. You are like unbelievably generous with your knowledge, and you've got this amazing articles that come out with your Friday Fix, which people should absolutely subscribe to, and you're published, I think, bi-weekly in a publication as well that goes out, which we can talk about in a minute as well. But you're no stranger to adversity. But the other thing I love about you is that you've taken a lot of that adversity and used it as your superpower, which we talk about a lot on this podcast. And I'm curious to know whether you're happy to share something that's happened to you that you've now taken and used as your new superpower.
Well, sure. I mean, we all get dealt a hand of cards, and some are good and some are not so good. And I have had, some ups and downs. My career, frankly, the genesis of that was some adversity. My second year of college didn't go as well as expected. I wanted to spend my third or my junior year abroad. This would have been 1983 into 1984. But because my second year didn't go well, my father, who never went to college, he fought in a war called World War II, said, no, you're not going abroad. And that was a bad mistake on my part, because my friends that went abroad ended up at the 1984 Winter Olympics in Sarajevo, and they got to see that beautiful city before it was reduced pretty much to rubble in the Civil War. So I lament the fact that I screwed that up. However, because I stayed stateside, I actually buckled down, and that was the catalyst to get me into law school. Had I stayed on that trajectory, Laban, there's no way, no how I would have figured it out and I would have made it into law school. So that one thing that my father did, which was I came off the rails, he put me back on the rails through some tough love. And that frankly got me going down this path of lawyering. And lawyering is a good thing because we're in service to people, and that's where I'm most comfortable. So a little bit of adversity there, but I turned that into I think a positive, because it led me to what was a very, very satisfying career.
Yeah, and you did so beautifully, and you were a partner up until of a very successful law firm, and I think it's a really important point to get to bring up, because you've given up something that people strive to work towards their whole lives, to pursue this passion that you have now to be of service and help people to get their health and well-being back in order. And I think, as you're relatively new as I am, you're understanding, it's not an easy transition. It's not a smooth transition.
No, it's not. And it's the profession is very, again, it's a very noble profession. It served me very well, but there are parts of it that need a tune-up. And I'll give you, for instance, the billable hour. We live and die by that in the States. And that is, I would bill a client for every 6 minutes of my time. As a result, you become obsessed. It becomes your prison. You view the world through this 6-minute lens. If I'm speaking to you on the phone and I know that it's going to be a 30-minute call, I say, Laban Ditchburn, he's a 0.5. I just know you're going to be a 0.5. That's how you look at life. And as a result, you don't do things which may be good for you physically or mentally because you can't bill them. If it's not a billable, quote unquote, activity, then it is frowned upon. And there needs to be a shift in the profession, frankly, where it's actually encouraged. So hypothetically, a young associate wants to go to the gym. She goes to the gym for 1 hour. We're able to record that, and that is counted as one of her billable hours. Then the pressure is off. She's allowed to work out and maintain some sort of fitness, which allows her to frankly be more productive. A lot of that doesn't go on. It's frowned upon. I used to call it the salt mine. I'd be having lunch with somebody and I'd say, well, I got to go back to the salt mine. It's just the kind of the atmosphere of the profession. That's how you live in that profession. And it's not overly healthy. So I see young lawyers, I see them struggle, and there are better ways to go about it. And that's what I'm just trying to get that message out.
Well, we glossed over it a little bit with your New York Marathon, but how many marathons and half marathons have you completed now, Carl?
I've got 27 marathons under my belt. I've got just 150 kilometer. I wanted more, but I've got a bit of a bulky hip. Half marathons, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 dozen. I'm a big fan of the half marathon. It's much more, it's easier on your body. But I was bitten by the marathon bug, and I just couldn't stop running them. They're just great events, and they're really metaphors for life. What happens in 26.2 miles, just an absolute metaphor for life.
Yeah, amen. And I was thinking, it was a question I had around, because with ultra marathon running, it's anything more than 26 miles, right? 26.2 or 42.2. Is there a distance in cycling that becomes ultra riding?
I think a century or 100 miles seems to be, so I don't know, it's 150 or 160 kilometers. The 100-mile mark seems to be mythical, might be a little too dramatic, but that seems to be the number, although there are a lot of rides that are metric centuries. So it's 100 kilometers, 62 miles. That puts you kind of in the endurance category, I believe, or the ultra category.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd never really thought about it that way, and I was like, oh, I wonder if there is actually a term for particular. Because I'm not much of a cyclist, only because running for me is like my meditation. It's very cathartic, but it's also I don't have a bike, and I've been borrowing my darling fiance's bike, so I'm riding a girl's bike. But I'm at a point in my life now where I don't care about that, whether anyone's judging me for that or not. And occasionally she'll go rollerblading, and I'll tow her on her bike, which is often a bit of fun. But the allure of an Ironman is always in the back of my mind. As you know, I've completed some ultra distance challenges, which are life changing. But I'm not a strong swimmer at the moment. I am moving to a place that will be next to the beach, but I'm also negatively buoyant. And for people that have never heard of this term before, it means because of my muscle mass, apparently, that I sink rather. I sink when I'm trying to just like relax in most water.
Mhm.
And when you're not a strong swimmer and you sink naturally, like the appeal of doing a 3.8 kilometer swim isn't that great? Is that anything that you've thought about completing, Carl?
Absolutely. And truth be told, I do have a bit of a bulky hip. I'm not sure that I could run a marathon. So that would take me out of the full triathlon phase. But I do know some tries allow wetsuits, which might solve your buoyancy problem. That's plan A. Plan B would be to just swim faster before you sink. So,
Thought you might say that.
but back to your comment about running being cathartic, it was and remains incredibly cathartic for me. There is nothing, frankly, like a sunrise when you're running. And I would never run with earphones. I just wanted to hear what was around me, chiefly cars, although you run against traffic. But I wanted to hear my footfalls. I want to hear a red-tailed hawk screeching. I want to hear a waterfall. I want to see that sunrise. Now, when you're on a bike going 20 miles an hour, it's not the best and wisest thing to do to look up at the sunrise because you're going fast, but you can still catch some stuff that is pretty remarkable. Just 2-3 weeks ago, I was riding near my house and I saw debris falling from a tree, and I looked up, and in the tree was a black bear tearing branches off of the tree. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So big. We have a lot of black bear in my neighborhood, and this guy was big. And I rode under the tree branch, hoping he didn't fall on me. And then I went another 50 yards and thought, I really need to take a picture of this. So I stopped, and I carry my iPhone, not for music, but for safety in case I need it. And I turned around and I snapped a photo. And it was just one of those moments where, I saw the debris on the ground, and I instinctively looked up, and I was greeted with this kind of an interesting sight, a black bear. And I snapped his photo, and he looked at me as if to say, "You're interrupting my breakfast." And I then got back on my bike and started pedaling out of there like I stole something, so he wouldn't catch me. So
Imagine.
those are neat moments that you don't get when you're riding in a car or tearing down the road on a motorcycle. Those are things that I think runners and cyclists and kayakers and mountaineers that they encounter, and those are gifts.
Wouldn't it be brilliant, Carl, if you heard, "Hey, boo boo, what about my picnic basket?"
Yeah, I should have dubbed him Yogi. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
it's God, the closest thing to a beer I've ever got was when I went to a gay bar once, and that's the affectionate term. When I was more portly, I was known as a bear in the gay lingo. I think I'm because I've slimmed down.
Gotcha.
I'm more of an otter.
Okay.
So
An otter. Yeah. No,
yeah,
we have them. They walk through my backyard. Um,
really,
and yeah, oh yeah, they do. We have a lot of black bear, and the government, they don't they don't do anything with the bear. What they'll do is they'll tag their ears, and they're deemed. It's basically three tags or three strikes, and then you're deemed a nuisance bear, and they will catch you and cart you, miles and miles away. So we'll see bears with, one tag on an ear, or two tags and a collar, and we know that that's a bad guy because he's been caught 3 times. So yeah, but they're not. You can't hunt them. I'm not a hunter, but you can't hunt the black bear. So they are reproducing at a great rate here. It used to be deer, but now it's black bear, and I film them, and it's no big deal. But to some that have never been around a bear, it is a big deal.
it's a big deal just being 6,000 miles away from your car hearing about this. Do you know if they attack other wildlife? Do you know if bears attack other deer, for example?
Best I know that black bears are not carnivores. They are herbivores. Best I know.
Really?
Yeah.
What about the ones that eat
Yep.
the salmon? So they're more the grizzly and the brown bear.
Brown bear and the grizzly. Yeah. But black bear, which is what we have in New England, my understanding is, and by the way, it'd be good to know otherwise, seeing as they do come through my backyard. But I'm working off the understanding that they're herbivores.
I got a funny
And,
feeling if they
by
get.
the way, if you find out otherwise, let me know.
Yeah, for people that are watching this on YouTube, can leave something in the comments below for us. That'd be really great.
Yeah.
Because Carl needs to know if his life is in danger. Because if it turns out they are omnivores, and you get one that's run out of berries, it might be a Carl Fix special.
Yeah, because black bear's land speed exceeds my biking speed unless I'm going downhill. So that Yogi's going to catch me.
Are they like 50 mile an hour or something they can get up to, or something ridiculous?
It's silly. I think it's mid to high 30s. I mean, they can move.
That's faster
So
than me.
yeah,
And
indeed.
you live in Connecticut in New England,
Yes, in Connecticut.
I'm learning a lot more about. Sounds like a really beautiful place to live in the United States.
It is. I'll tell you, the winters though can get a little old, for lack of a better phrase. When I was a kid, I loved them, but now they seem to. And times change. The winters here seem to paralyze commerce. Uh, we used to have a lot of blizzards when I was a kid, and a blizzard would knock people down for a day, and then we'd get on with it. Now, with the 24/7 news cycle, weather cycle, you're hearing for days about an upcoming storm, and the storm may drop, 1 inch of snow or 2 inches, but work events get canceled. In the pre-pandemic, you then work from home and things of that nature. So, and you have to wear more clothing, which is a hassle. So, but there are a lot of neat places. I love to ski. I ski with my daughters, and we're close to some great places to ski. I do like skiing out west in the States. There's more snow, less ice. In New England, there's ice, but you learn how to ski on it. So there are a lot of pluses. There are a couple minuses. Just as you get older, the winters get a little older. That's all. They get older as you get older.
Well, I've got a solution for you, Carl, that I learned about recently. And Anna and I, people that listen to the podcast will know that Anna, my darling fiance, her background, she's from Russia. And because of what's sort of been happening in the world, we've sort of been keeping our options open. And I said to her, is there anywhere in Russia that's like subtropical that we could, maybe go and spend some time living, right? And Sochi in Russia on the Black Sea is where they held the Winter Olympics.
Okay.
It is a subtropical location, but you drive a few miles up the hill and you've got access to 3 gnarly ski fields during the winter. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around. It's like being in Florida and then being able to drive up the mountain to go and ski. So, little known fact: go check out Sochi.
Yeah,
The only
that's good
thing,
to know.
yeah, right. And the average wage in Sochi is about $500 a month. So to buy a property or to live there would be relatively inexpensive. There is some expensive properties, but your cost of living would be pretty low. You just got to put up with a beach that's got quite a few large pebbles on it. It's not that beautiful fine sand that we'll discover when we get up in Queensland later this year.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant.
Now, Cal, you're fairly early on in this transition into this amazing heart-centered business that you're doing. Have you had any success stories so far that you can share with us?
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, I'm doing a lot of writing, and I'm a lot of feedback that I'm getting on the writing uh, is really knocking me over. I'll give you, for instance, I just put up a post last week on LinkedIn. Last year, I cycled 3,600 miles. This year, I set a goal of 5,000. So I came up with this idea. I've got 4 months to get 1,400 miles. And I do like to ride miles in honor or in memory of folks. And I gave some examples on my post. When my nephew turned 16 a few years ago, I took him out on a 16-mile run. My wife had an uncle who turned 100. I rode 100 miles in a charity ride in his honor. I lost a brother-in-law in May. He was 61. The day after he passed, I went out and rode 61 miles. So that's kind of the theme. And I've gotten stuff back. I just got one the other day where a friend of mine, she not only asked for 37 miles, but she asked for a particular day, because that particular day in October coming up is the 37th anniversary of the passing of her father. So I will ride 37 miles on October 28th for this friend's in memory of this friend's father. I've got other folks that somebody turned 50, their business is 68 years old. Meredith Bell reached out to me, the incomparable Meredith Bell. She just lost a friend to cancer at the age of 69. I will ride 69 miles for this friend. So neat things like that. And so I consider that a success. It's not monetized, but I don't care, because what I'm doing is resonating with folks. I mean, on the true business side of the ledger, I've done a number of continuing legal education seminars for bar associations. I have one coming up October 8th for the state of Wyoming, their state bar. I'm going to do a continuing legal ed where I do a 1-hour presentation, and I'm able to reach more people with kind of the message. So I need to remind myself that we're still inside of 4 months on this thing. And it's not like the Wizard of Oz. I can't just click my heels and be in Kansas. So it's been a phenomenal journey. And yes, there have been what I would consider to be successes along the way. So I appreciate that question, like the rest of them.
Well, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear, and you've got me locked in for a marathon distance in December as well. And the thing I love about it, Carl, and I really enjoy your the content that you put out and that you write, and I would really encourage people to subscribe to your Friday Fix as well, because it's an accountability thing for me. It's an accountability thing for you. It's got purpose and meaning. And a guy that I interviewed recently, Keith Abraham, is an Australian speaker. He's a Hall of Fame speaker over here, and he came up with when the why becomes when the why becomes clear, rather, the how becomes easy. And I think about that statement a lot. And that's a marathon distance that I wouldn't have run without you giving it some why. And I think that's what I really appreciate about, and you're not doing it from a virtue signaling, hey, I'm doing this for the validation of other people. You're like, you don't give a fuck. Like you're just like, this is the path I'm on. People want to come along. Fantastic. And it's really inspiring, Carl. And I think the goodness is going to come organically your way just because of what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm having a great time doing it. It's been less than 1 week, Laban. And I'll give you another, for instance. There's a gentleman I know in the UK. I'm going to do his podcast on September 29, and he's tied it into the UK calendar. So he writes September 29 in the UK is 29.9. So he said, "Will you ride 29.9 miles?" I said, "Sure." I did that this morning. And I rode 50 miles yesterday for a friend. His parents have been married 50 years. So I did a 50 miler yesterday for my buddy's parents. And then this morning, I will confess in all candor, I was a little tired and I thought, do I want to go ride? And then I thought of my buddy in the United Kingdom and I had planned to ride 29.9. So I went out and did it. It gave my ride purpose. The ancillary benefits are fantastic. I knew it would set the compass for my day, but it was doubly beneficial because I knew my friend Richard in the UK. I knew that this was what he wanted, so it makes it a lot more fun, and we might as well have fun doing this. Work is a dirty word, and while it's physically taxing, it's very, very rewarding. And so it's kind of neat.
Yeah, it is neat. And I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm blowing smoke here, Carl, but, for people listening, a former guest who you can watch this interview as well, Dr. Fred Luskin, who's a forgiveness expert. I have to thank Carl because he's the one that read my blog post about the troubles I was having with my father and the fight that we'd got into, and very kindly referenced this Fred Luskin guy to help me deal with what I was battling. And the flow-on effect from that one engagement with this amazing guy has impacted the lives of at least, and it hasn't even been released yet, it's at least 30, 40 people that it's impacted that I know about. So I like,
Yeah.
this is the impact that you're having already.
Well, if I could, I'd like to talk about that aha moment because it was an aha moment. So it was back in 2012. I was on a plane flying somewhere in the States, and I was reading the Seatback magazine the plane put out, and there was an article on forgiveness. And this particular article related the story of a gentleman who forgave the man who murdered his son. And it blew me away. And embedded in that article were quotes by Dr. Luskin. And I tore the article out of the magazine and I put it in my briefcase. And I would keep a folder, an old school physical folder. And I knew someday that I would draw upon that. And however many months ago, when I read your post, it gelled. I read your post. I thought, this is a guy that I know, I know, and I respect, and he's in a bit of a crisis here. And I thought of this article, and I dug it out, and I got it to you, and it was very gratifying that this came full circle, and it took 9 years. So you do things along the way which you think may not make an impact at that moment, but down the road they may. And that was kind of an aha moment for me. And it was, I'm thrilled that, things have unfurled the way they have unfurled. So that's that's the background on that.
Well, yeah, thank you again. It was Father's Day here on Sunday. We celebrate at a different time of the year to you jokers. And I called up Dad, and because despite the forgiveness, we don't engage as much as we used to. There's more of a preventative measure to keep things civil, I suppose. We disagree with a number of things, but what did happen off the back of that? He did say to me that he will, no matter what I say or do to him, he will always love me. And that helped release a lot of the angst around everything. But when I spoke to him on Father's Day, I just said, do you know what, Dad? Just thank you for bringing me to life. Thank you for giving me life. And no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what levels of frustration or anxiety or hate that you might be experiencing for your parents, the one thing that they did do is that they gave us life. If every single other thing that they did was horrendous, they still gave me life. And that was a real poignant moment for me. And we spoke for 10 minutes, and then I let him go on his way. And, he said a couple of things that indicate that maybe he's sort of coming around to some of the ideas that I've thrown by him. And, there's some really positive stuff on the horizon as a result. And, he's getting old. He's had some health issues. And if he was to have dropped dead in that time that I held all that anger towards him, would I have been able to forgive myself with everything that I come to learn? Maybe not. So I'm real appreciative of your impact in that moment.
Yeah, well, it warms my heart. And as far as the parents go, there are things I think parents do that you don't even know about. And I'll give you an example. I talk about my dad again. When I was in college, that second year, I was again kind of a screw up, and I phoned home one night, and my father at the time was working for the state, and they have pretty regular hours, 8:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon. And I called one evening and I asked to speak with him, and my mother said he wasn't there. And I said, "Where is he?" "Well, he's at a meeting," which I thought was strange, because in his role in the government, they didn't have meetings in the evening. Well, I come to find out he was working a second job to help pay my tuition. And he never admitted that to me. And I found that out second or third hand. I felt like a real tool, because here's a guy, he graduated from high school, ended up in what was then the Army Air Corps, which is now the United States Air Force. He was in Guam in the summer of 45, before the Japanese surrendered. And then he went to work. And so he never went to college. So his son, one of his sons, me, was off screwing around, and he's off, working a second job to help me screw around. And I never knew that until much later. So some of these things you got to take with a grain of salt. They may do things that you have no idea are benefiting you, because they just think it's a parental thing and they don't want credit for it. So that was kind of a big deal to me when I found that out. It gave me a little more focus, shall we say.
And I think it's made you a really amazing father based on the knowledge and some of the information you've shared with me with regards to your two amazing daughters.
Well, thank you. I have learned a lot. I learned a lot from my parents, and I try to pass that on. Kind of simple life lessons that some people want to make harder, but when they're distilled into their simplest terms, it's not that hard. So,
well, speaking of life lessons, you and I have had a discussion recently about you writing your book, and I'm curious to know how your book writing's going, Carl Fix.
Well, is this where I plead the fifth? No, this isn't juicy enough to plead the fifth. The book writing is, I have disparate thoughts and I have a lot of material. I just need to organize it and get some type of theme. But I've been writing, I find, in addition to cycling and running and all these other endurance activities that I find cathartic, I also find writing to be very cathartic. It's very powerful. The ability to convey a message in just a few words is a very powerful thing, and things that resonate with people. I've had folks respond to some of my posts saying, "Keep doing this. We need you," things like that. And these aren't ego tugs. I'm not doing it for the ego tug. I'm just doing it because I love doing it. And I think I'm kind of digressing here, but there's an apocalyptic news cycle daily. It's 24/7. It's nonstop. And if you listened to it all and absorbed it, you would never get out of bed. And I just think that I've used the word insatiable in this chat already. I'll use it again. There's this insatiable appetite for something good, some positive news. I've said hope is like oxygen. People need it. So that's kind of what I'm writing about. Like, there are a lot of good people in this world. And roundabout way to saying the book is still in cyberspace. How's that?
Well,
Trying to get it together.
it was a loaded question because now that it's in public domain, there's an accountability. This is like you and your cycling and my 42.2 kilometers. So I just wanted to crowbar that in there because I can't wait to read what you will put together. And I've seen a wee snippet of what's likely to be in there, and it's pretty exciting. Well, very exciting, in fact. So I'm sure myself and the audience wish you all the best in getting that out in the next. Let's give you 12 months. All right, I think that's plenty of time to get it out.
Let me jot that down. Well, let me tell you, I'll share something with you. As I mentioned, I lost a brother-in-law back in May, and I gave the eulogy. I eulogized him at his funeral, and I had some folks come up to me after, and a friend of mine said a couple weeks after the funeral that my eulogy made Jim come to life again, and that knocked me over. I was rendered speechless by that, and I put a lot into the eulogy. I did it with my nephew. We combined heads, and I spoke. But that was the goal: was to honor Jim and respect him and his legacy, and I was able to communicate it and make him come alive again. And this gentleman said it was somber, but we actually felt better about ourselves when we left the church. And I only say that, again, not to impress, but to inform that was very meaningful to me, because that's what I try to do with my writing, is make things come alive. I mean, you've read some snippets of your book to me, and you drop the person right into the story. I mean, the chapters you've read to me, I've been on the edge of my seat. Like, how's this going to turn out? I felt like I was right there with you. And that's a gift. So for somebody to say a eulogy made somebody come alive again, I figured, okay, that was mission accomplished, because that's what I wanted to do. In addition to some other things, but that's what I'm trying to do with my writing. And it's funny, I write some things and you like them and they're duds. You write some other things like, I'm just going to put this together, and it soars. So you never know what's going to hit. It's kind of fun when you put the stuff out there.
Well, I know people are thinking, how the hell do I find this amazing man, Carl Fix? How do people get a hold of you, Carl?
So my website is carlfix.com, CARLFICKS.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. You just pump in my name, Carl Fix, and I'm there. Every Friday, I do that Friday Fix, as you said. I started that at the beginning of the year, and I can share with you, if you'd like, the genesis of that. It's really a pun on my last name. It's like a little fix, F-I-X. It's just, I'm designing it. I try to give a little nugget of wisdom or inspiration that help people through the week. And the way that started is I went to church as a kid, sometimes under protest, under duress, whatever. And the priest would give the homily, and some of them were 13, 14, 15-minute finger wagging lectures, history lessons, and the like, and you get nothing out of it. And then you get a priest up there, and in 3 minutes, he would just light the place up, and he'd give you this little nugget of wisdom that you could think about during the week, and it got you through the week. So I started playing around with that, and I said, well, let's play with my last name. So it's the Friday Fix, and every Friday I post on LinkedIn. And I'm now doing a column in a local newspaper, which is the first and third Fridays of the month, with a column of the same name. And so that's where it is. But my website is carlfix.com, and LinkedIn, just Carl Fix. And I'll connect with you. Well, I'm connected with you, but I'll connect with anybody, just because I love to share content. And I love to see and read and hear about great things and great people.
Brilliant. And Carl, do you have any concluding thoughts for our audience today?
Sure. Here's my concluding thought. There was a singer, Harry Chapin. Not sure if you were familiar with him. He sang Cats in the Cradle, among other things, which has been, a lot of people know Cats in the Cradle. Harry Chapin was an incredible songwriter and storyteller. I had the good fortune of seeing Harry Chapin in the summer of 1980. Harry Chapin was killed in the summer of 1981, 40 years ago. Uh, Harry Chapin was also a great humanitarian, and one of his goals was to wipe out world hunger. And a lot of people don't realize he was such a humanitarian. But Harry Chapin had a saying that, and it was, when in doubt, do something. And I think the when in doubt, do something applies to a lot of things in life, including fitness. When in doubt, do something. When in doubt, go for a walk. When in doubt, go for a run. It also applies to the philanthropic side of life, or being in service to people. If there's a problem in your community, when in doubt, just do something. If you think there's a problem at the soup kitchen, go volunteer. So that was Harry Chapin's motto: when in doubt, do something. So that's always rattling around in my head. It's when in doubt, just do something. Stay in action. Stay in motion, however that motion take whatever form that motion takes. So I think the when in doubt, do something applies again to fitness, but it applies to so many other things in life. So that was the late great Harry Chapin, who made quite an impact on the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Fix.